everybody, and welcome back to Marketing Inc. Today, we are going to talk about local businesses and the things that they need to consider before reopening their business or during this time of reopening after the coronavirus pandemic. So we have been in the midst of and dealing with the aftermath of coronavirus since the launch of this podcast. And so today, this is the first episode that we're really talking about that deals with what you need to be doing now that you may be opening up for the very first time. So regardless of your personal feelings about masks or about coronavirus or any of those things, all of these things still apply to you because what they do is put the customer first, put their thoughts first, put their feelings first, and really consider the business that you could potentially lose if you do this incorrectly. So, as someone who lives in a state that recently reopened, I went out one weekend with two of my girlfriends and I had some salon services done, and I was able to experience restaurants, bars, retailers, and some of those salon and spa services. So every state is going to be different in terms of what their requirements are, but I will say that based on my understanding, these things, for the most part, for your clients, they are not laws. So you all are responsible for doing your own thorough research into your own guidelines for your own state or wherever you are located, and making sure that you know, first and foremost, what is an actual law, what is a suggestion, and what is just something to consider, basically. So without knowing those things, the rest of this process is going to be a little bit more difficult because you're going to be uninformed, and you don't want to be uninformed when it comes to your business, when it comes to, the safety of your staff or of your clients or of your legal responsibilities. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of those things, and I believe this is really important to discuss because I haven't seen anyone talking about them so far. And so as someone who works specifically with local businesses, these are the things that I noticed. These are the things that you need to think about and the things that many of you need to address right now. So the first thing I will say is that you need to always be honest. After you've done that thorough research into your specific state or country's regulations and laws regarding the reopening of your business, you should have a very clear picture of this is what's required and I have no choice in the matter. This is what is suggested and this is something we may consider doing if we feel like it. When you have those things, you need to be very clear about them. So I've already seen this happen in several different circumstances. This primarily happened with salon and spa services. They are telling people, at least in my area, and many of them, that the clients wearing a mask is the law. So first and foremost, it's not the law. There are definitely some considerations for them. I actually spoke to several of them and tried to get to the heart of the issue. And ultimately, I read the regulations of my state. And those regulations, or those, guidelines and documentation for reopening for those specific businesses, they are what you are going to go by. So if it's not in there, it's not true. And you need to look at the verbiage. So saying suggested or encouraged or consider, those are phrases that do not mean it's law. So what I heard from several people that I spoke with in these industries is that their insurance companies are actually encouraging them to do this, or their insurance is going to go up. So if that's the case, you need to be honest. Don't lie to your clientele and say that something is a law and that you have no choice, when in reality you do have a choice and you are choosing to do what your insurance company has requested of you. So the interesting thing about that is that I already know several businesses who have simply offered their clients who wanted to opt out of these services, they gave them a waiver to sign saying, if I am to get coronavirus, I'm not going to come after your business, etc. So I do think that you really just need to be clear about what you are doing voluntarily, what is legally required of you, and just even why you're doing those things so that your client base is going to understand what you're coming from, regardless of if they agree with the decision or not. I personally believe that any business that lies to their customer base because it's easier than going into a detailed explanation, that's unexcusable. You need to have integrity in every area of your business, and that is included when it comes to your communication with your clients about things like this. So be honest, be upfront, and if someone finds out that you are lying, such as the businesses that told me specifically that these things were laws when I had personally read the literature on them for their specific business in their specific state and city with their specific industry, I now have zero trust with that company. And that's something that's really important, because there's no way that that company is going to earn my business back simply because they lied to me. If they had been honest, it would have been a totally different scenario. So don't lose business over something as simple as telling the truth. And so many local businesses have been hit hard right now. You can't afford to lose any business over these silly little things. Just think about it on the front end, and you're going to be prepared, and you're going to have a great plan to reopen your business. I'll also add that if you've already reopened and you're not doing some of the things that I'm recommending, it's not too late. Go ahead and do them. It is never too late to make a positive change. So the next thing that I will say is that not all of your customers want you to mandate masks. So I have known several different business owners that they assume that their customers are not going to come back to them unless they are mandating masks be worn. They assume that their clientele will be very hesitant and scared to come in if everyone is not wearing a mask. And right now, I'm not talking about your staff. So your staff is one thing, and there may very well be a lot more strict laws that you do not have a choice when it comes to your staff. But here we're really talking a lot about your rules for your customers. So not all of your customers feel that way. So what we want to do in business, in marketing, and anything else is not make assumptions. We want to look at facts. We want to look at reality and form our decisions with those things. So if you have not spoken with a large population of your specific clientele in your specific city, now is the best time to do that. I would encourage you, if you're unsure, send out a survey to people who've actually purchased from you in the past, not just a post on your Facebook page. Send this out to your consumers and say, we want to hear from you. You know, we want to make sure that we can do the best job to give you the options that you need to feel safe, but also not to feel restricted. And we want to know what you think. Give them some options. Make it very simple for them. Consider texting it to them as well. And anybody who's done business with you in the past, they should be very happy to give you 60 seconds of their time to help you as a local business that they are supporting. So when you run your business, you absolutely have the right to run it in any way you choose. So this isn't about, doing what your customers are telling you to do, but this is something to say that if you are assuming that that's what everyone wants and that's the reason you're making this decision, then you probably don't have all the facts, and maybe you do. But what you want to do is be confident that you have the facts and you're not basing your decisions off of assumptions and theories and guesses, because again, you can run your business how you want, but consumers have a choice in where they shop, where they eat, where they spend their money. And you don't want them to decide to do business elsewhere for something very simple. The next thing I'll say is to explain yourself. So be upfront in the choices that you are making for your business. I've already had this happen several different times. So one example was a massage parlor that I had a monthly subscription with. So over the last several months, I actually opted to continue to pay them every month just to help them out. But whenever it came time to schedule that very first massage after they were reopened, they didn't mention any changes at all when I scheduled that appointment. I would say about 30 minutes before I had to leave for that appointment, I got a text message with an extensive list of requirements and was told that if I did not accept those requirements, that I wasn't going to be able to be there. And again, it's fine for whatever you decide, but you need to tell people on the front end. So you need to tell people when they're booking an appointment that these are now your requirements and you need to get them to consent then and there. Because I was very upset that they waited until the last minute. If I had already been on my way when I saw that text message, if I had been, out in that end of town knowing that I had an appointment, those things would have totally inconvenienced me when all I needed was the information on the front end. I had another business that it's actually like a sports center for my daughter. And we also have a monthly, basically, subscription for her gymnastics lessons. And this business went ahead and charged me when they reopened before they had shared their regulations and before they had gotten my consent that we would be participating in those. So first of all, it's not that you can't reverse a charge for something like that, but reversing charges is going to cost you as the business owner additional fees. And those fees are not something that you should have to pay. All you have to do is think about these things in advance and you can avoid that. But most importantly, avoid making your clients angry for something that is as simple as clarifying what they need to do and making sure that they're consenting to it. Don't charge someone for a subscription if your regulations have changed significantly because they didn't sign on for that. So they may be totally okay with it, but if they're not, you don't want to have to go back and redo things or refund things. It's just going to be a mess. And imagine if someone didn't see those things and brings their child in and does not want to consent or cannot consent, which we will talk about in a little bit. That is going to make the child upset, it's going to make the parent upset, and it's just asking for a nightmare that doesn't need to exist. So what I suggest is just being clear. Put these on your website on a header saying our regulations have changed. Click here to make sure you consent. Maybe you should send your customers basically a consent form or a waiver before they even attempt to schedule or as soon as you reopen. Again, if you're already open, it's not too late to do that. So put it on your social media. Make sure you tell people when they are booking an appointment or when they are, scheduling a reservation or whatever it is. Don't wait until the last second, because I can promise you, just from my personal experience so far, it's not good because everybody has different regulations and you cannot assume that your customers are aware of what yours are. So the next thing that I will say is that if you are going to mandate that someone wear a mask, I personally believe that you actually need to enforce it based on real sanitary processes, because this is something that it's supposed to work if everyone does it. And if you are allowing certain people to wear them and certain people to not wear them based on the products or the services that they're using, it's going to be very confusing to your clients, and it's also going to make them question what exactly it is you're trying to accomplish. So I think we all understand at this point that we need to make sure we're protecting people who are vulnerable to sickness, but you also want to make sure that you're not putting any type of restrictions on your clientele that aren't actually going to protect anyone. So again, this is totally non-political. Just want to make sure that you really get that if you're going to mandate that everyone wear a mask in order to come into your business, you simply need to enforce that in all instances outside of some things that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. And I will give you an example. So that same salon or spa that I was talking about, they told me when I had called to, get clarification on some of those restrictions, they told me that for facial services, so I had a massage and a facial scheduled, that for facial services, I didn't have to wear it because how are you supposed to wear it? It's a service on your face, kind of joking. Well, you also have to wear it while you're getting a massage. But then they told me, well, we're telling everyone they don't have to wear it when they're face down and that they should pull it under their nose so they can actually breathe. To me, that really just blew my mind, because you're mandating that people wear these. You're saying, if you're not willing to do it, you're not going to be able to come here. Yet you're telling them, oh, it only applies to certain services. It only applies if you're in the upward position, not the downward position. We are fine with you wearing it incorrectly under your nose, even though we know that that's not serving its full purpose. So again, these are just things you need to think about. If you're going to mandate this, you really should be mandating it be done correctly. Otherwise, there isn't really a purpose. And your clients will find what you're doing very odd, very confusing, and some of them may even question your level of research that you did regarding your own business if this is something that you're forcing them into without forcing them to actually do it safely. So again, I don't care what you do, but if you're gonna say that people don't have to wear real masks, they can wear something like a bandana, well, you also need to consider, are we gonna let someone cover their mouth with their hand? Are we gonna allow someone to use their hair as a covering for their mouth? Because ultimately, if you're not requiring a medical grade mask, you know, how are you really going to make clear what applies to your customers? This is really about allowing them to be prepared before they come to you so that they fully understand. You don't know how far people are driving to come to see you. You don't know what their personal feelings or even medical history are. And so just make sure you really have all of these details mapped out, and most importantly, that your staff is trained on them. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I have seen procedures and policies put in place and staff never finds out about it. Clients have questions, people are asking them, people are, you know, wanting clarification, and they have no idea what to say, which makes them look very ignorant. And it's not their fault. They should have been informed by the business owner. But you, if you are the business owner, that's your job, to make sure every single person in the building not only understands what your policy is, but what the exceptions are and what the reasoning is behind it if someone has a question. That is going to be, in my opinion, just as important as the actual regulations themselves. The next thing I want to talk about is anti-discrimination. And I am not a lawyer, so if you have legal questions, you absolutely need to speak to your lawyer. But anti-discrimination laws do exist, and my suggestion to you would be that you don't put yourself in a bad position by forgetting about that. So there are people who have underlying health conditions that are going to prevent them from safely wearing a mask, even if you say that it's mandated. So it's not required that someone disclose their medical history to you, and having someone continue to ask them about that is a very slippery slope in and of itself. But discriminating against someone because of a condition or a disability completely unrelated to COVID, that is absolutely against the law in most places. And again, please do not take my word for it. Talk to your lawyer. But we're not supposed to discriminate against people. And so you have to keep that in mind. If there is someone that has a health condition, are you going to force them to wear a mask or leave? You need to decide that now. And you really can't get into a habit of asking to see any type of documentation for that, because again, very slippery slope. Do your due diligence where legal issues are concerned, and make sure that you are not putting your business in a position to be discriminatory. There are also certain conditions that raise people's body temperature. And I actually know someone who has a condition like this. They are otherwise healthy, but this does cause them to have an increased temperature. They are very nervous about the fact that everyone or a lot of places are forcing them to have their temperature taken. So again, you've got to be super, super careful when it comes to who you're going to turn away and under what circumstances you're going to be okay to do that legally. So get your ducks in a row. Do not fly by the seat of your pants on this, please. I promise you, you could get yourself into a position where you're losing business or where you actually have legal issues, and you don't want to do that. I also personally believe that if at all possible, you should give people an opt-out. So again, like we just talked about, there are people who have medical conditions, whether that's not being able to safely wear a mask or a body temperature issue. And then there's a lot of things in between. This is a very new thing in our world, and a lot of people may not be sure how being forced to wear a mask would affect certain things that they have going on. And I just don't believe that there is a one size fits all. So if you can, if it is not a law set in stone to where the government is going to come shut down your business if you don't comply, I think you should give people an alternate choice. So this is just like when you're going through the airport security, and some people do not want to go through the x-ray machine. Pregnancy is an example of that. A lot of people, they're not sure how the x-rays are going to affect babies, which is why they typically don't do x-rays when you're pregnant. And so they're able to opt out of that for a manual pat down instead. That's a great example of potential health issues or potential value issues of maybe somebody doesn't agree with x-rays. I don't know, maybe it's a religious thing. You're not supposed to discriminate religiously either. So again, just doing your research on these things is important, but an opt-out would save you a lot of strife. And so when I was talking about those salons and spas that are doing a waiver, because it's actually the insurance company that's most concerned, everything else is a suggestion for their clients, that's an example of an opt-out. So I would encourage you again to take a close look at the verbiage in your regulations for reopening that should have been dictated by your governor. So in a lot of those that I read, a lot of things said things such as, ask your customers if they've had COVID-like symptoms in the last 14 days by phone, or consider taking their temperature on arrival. To me, that sounds like it's suggested. Number one, it's not required. But number two, they're giving people two different options. If someone is not comfortable having you take their temperature, you need to ask them, hey, if that's not something you're comfortable with, can you share if you've had COVID-like symptoms in the last 14 days? And it said you could do it by phone, or you could do it in person, I suppose. Granted, that would allow other people to potentially hear their medical history, which is not that smart. Again, that's why you really want to be thinking about these things on the front end. Don't wait till someone comes to your door to have this conversation with them. So I just think that if there is an alternate route that you can take for those people who have a condition or that you could potentially be discriminating against, you've got an option for that ready to go that your staff is very aware of. So again, these are really just my 2 cents based on things that I've seen, based on conversations that I've had with others who've had experiences where they were felt that they were discriminated against because of medical conditions completely unrelated to COVID. And then a lot of other things that are going to arise, such as, children and the ages of wearing them versus not wearing them. I can guarantee you that some people are not going to be comfortable with their 5-year-old wearing a mask and wondering why the 4-year-olds cannot wear masks, but the 5-year-olds have to. So again, it's just about being clear. Whatever you do, you need to have a clear explanation for it. You need to really think about it. You need to have these things documented for your staff, and you need to make sure that you're actually speaking with your clientele about this and not making decisions that leave them out, because ultimately they're the people that pay your bills, and we cannot forget that they have thoughts, feelings, and opinions too, and we're trying to serve them. We're not trying to restrict them. So hopefully this has been helpful. I would love to talk more about this subject and what experience you've had so far, what questions you may have. There's absolutely things that you can do in a lot of different types of businesses, but obviously those things are going to vary industry by industry and state by state. So I'd love to hear some of your stories. If you want to send those into email, we'd love to hear them. Just email support@allybloydmedia.com. And I'd love to continue the conversation about this as we get further into the process of reopening. So thanks so much, guys. I hope you come back and listen to our next episode. It's going to be a winner, and I really enjoyed spending time with you today. Thanks so much.